Hi, welcome to the interview series of Spark Living Lab. My name is Anirvan Sen, and I'm the CEO of Fifth Chrome, which is one of the participating companies in this program. This is the first episode of the interview series that we're going to conduct on behalf of Spark Living Lab. And we'll have experts in the field of data driven logistics as well as in blockchain who will talk about opportunities and pitfalls related to using some of these new enabling technologies as part of the business solution. Many of these experiences and expertise can be very handy and could directly be used in your own organizations. So, Spark Living Lab is a research program under Sustainable Living Labs that has been co founded by the Netherlands Organization for Scientific Research, which is NWO, Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management, National Directors Body for Practice Research, SIA, and the top sector logistics companies. And today, I'm being joined by one of the recognized industry experts, Hjalmar van der Schaaf, who is the head of CargoLedger, who's going to join us today, as you can see on the video.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's an honor to be here, also being the first. I'm Hjalmar van der Schaaf. I'm the founder and CEO of CargoLedger, and we are working on digital transformation of supply chain and logistics with innovative technology, with blockchain as a basis. And we started CargoLedger basically after work we did for the top sector logistics, for the main ports, on getting a grasp on what is coming from the hinterland towards the main ports. And my business partner basically connected InnoPay to the top sector logistics, to the NLP, to start working on iShare, on data sharing across logistics in the Netherlands. And we then thought, okay, with blockchain, you can sort stuff bottom up. And then we started building basically. And we are currently working from Amsterdam, working in a container. So every day experiencing what it means to be cargo. That helps. Yeah, and now we go in more detail on what we do and our view on sharing data across logistics with innovative technology.
Excellent. I think that's a great start and a great introduction, Hjalmar. So, since you are one of the experts and you did talk about certain examples for the benefit of our listeners, maybe can you elaborate on some of those examples?
Well, CargoLedger is one, but also had TradeLens, an initiative I deliver from the Port of Rotterdam with ABN AMRO, and what we do, we are, as I mentioned, we started working with CargoLedger a couple of years ago, and we thought, okay, with this new technology, you can make it easier sharing data across logistics, also for smaller companies, and that is what we do. We provide stakeholders in the supply chain or in logistics with a digital identity, and then we capture data from either their warehouse management systems, ERP systems, transport management systems, what have you, and we share then the data that we capture. We share that between the stakeholders using blockchain. So deleting data becomes impossible. Sharing is easy, and changes are transparent. And you could also make payments easier, which is obviously relevant also for Windows. So that's what we do. And we use blockchain. We also use artificial intelligence, but for example, to scan license plate of trucks or identification numbers of containers. And we use sensors to check the state of the goods across the supply chain. For example, humidity, temperature, ethylene, what have you. Yeah. That's basically what we use. And well, obviously, with all those technology, you need you still need to develop applications. So you need all the web apps or mobile. You need to make it has to work on mobile devices. You have to connect stuff. So you need software. You need modern tools to create then the software that makes everything work. So that's also what we do. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think absolutely. I mean, the interface with different systems could be ERPs in many cases, but also some of the legacy systems which are there.
Yeah.
Now, some of the people that I interact with tends to be quite skeptical about these new age technologies, and a couple of reasons for that. One is, of course, these technologies are advancing so fast that people are not being able to keep up, knowing what's happening, what's the power of these new technologies. But
Yeah.
more importantly, that they don't necessarily see the business value, in terms of revenue, in terms of cost savings, profits, all of
Mhm.
that stuff.
Yeah.
So how would you go about, selling this, or what's the business case related to some of these solutions?
It's about how yeah, what problem are you solving basically, and it's not that it's not a silver bullet, all the new technology. You always have so that you also always really have to think about, okay, what's the business case and what is the investment I have to make to make stuff work. Yeah, that's, and as I mentioned, the business case is always a good one, and I believe that with blockchain you make you're looking at trust in a different manner, and you can organize trust in a different manner with that technology, yeah, without third parties, or with a different role for those third parties, and you provide better information across the entire supply chain between to all the parties, and that better information is more timely information, but you can also trust that information, or and the trust is then both in the technology. It cannot be altered. You can only add info, and the information is shared easier and at an earlier stage between all the parties. So if someone needs that information to do their job properly, there's an incentive for them to look at the information at an earlier stage. Also, it's provided to them earlier, so they can detect anomalies or what have you earlier. So that also helps. And then if you then look at, okay, that reduces, and all that better info reduces the risk, the costs of doing business, and the transaction costs go down.
Correct.
You
Yeah.
have you have better info, so you don't need to organize all kinds of extra processes to validate. So the verification cost and validation costs go down. And then if you then add, and then that in itself, and usually there is a business case for that, or you can come up with one. But then if you look at, and if you add finance in the equation, as they're doing in Zwolle, then there always, in my strong opinion, is a business case for blockchain. So that's
Yeah, I think that some of the examples that you mentioned are quite pertinent, because even in my own experience, and we've also been doing some work in blockchain. I think one of the things was the track and trace, and that can dramatically reduce inventories, but
yeah.
also have a significant impact on the frauds and the pilferage that may happen in the supply chain itself.
Yeah.
But also, I think you brought up a very important angle, which is the financial pieces. I think with smart contracts, and you can make payments much easier. Will that be something that you've been using as well?
Now we're looking into that. We are in itself it is working. We're using Ethereum as a blockchain underneath our solution. So and payment then is working. You can transfer ethers between parties if the conditions are met. So that's in itself quite easy. But then no one wants to be paid in Ethereum at the moment. So that's but we are looking. It is also something we want to look into with Windesheim on okay, what can we do in a different manner with financing a trade across supply chains and logistics. Yeah,
Right.
we are looking into that. It's an obvious it's a logical obvious thing to look into.
Right. Yeah. And sort of moving on, you mentioned about different technologies, different systems. I'm sure there is a lot of data that gets generated from this, and one of the critical elements of a new age solution is, how to sort of massage and manage the data, how to do the data mining, how to capture it, but also how to get meaningful information from that. So, what's your view on that?
And with blockchain, with the technology, you can provide better data to parties, so that helps. And then you can have all kinds of, you can plan better, you can improve stuff, you can use So you can predict better with AI, and the models used in AI also need to be fed by data. And if the data is better, then the outcome becomes better. So that's
Yeah, and I think because it's a multi-party solution, only people with existing permissions or pre-designed permissions would be able to see the data anyways, and I think
yeah.
that's one of the advantages of that. And then we have a question from Stefan. How do you cope with companies that don't have any electronic data available?
Yeah, no, you have to. The good question. So yeah, that is an interesting one, and that is an actual. And we have an actual also an actual issue. We have or not an issue, but we have an accredited e-CMR as CargoLedger for road transport. So that sorts basically the responsibilities of all parties involved in a supply chain logistics. And then what we do is then we use we now have a hybrid model with the customer where the driver both ideally you want to onboard all the parties involved and have them use a digital system and have that systems connect either with a blockchain or with APIs or what have you, so you can share data better. So that's the end goal. And if you have better, then will have ultimately better info to make it easy for those companies that don't have access to it or don't have good IT, don't have an IT department, or so you make. We're working on cloud solutions with blockchain, so that just so they can use the software only with the user and a username password, and then they're on board basically. Or you have, as I mentioned earlier, the hybrid model where a driver, in this case, for the e-CMR, both uses the paper and a mobile device, and then takes that to the customer to explain. So it's easier to explain both the benefits of the digital version, but also if the customer doesn't want to use it, he still can sign off on the paper. He can also sign off with the sign-on screen solution. But so you provide all that possibilities to the end user, and then keep on discussing with him and explaining the benefits of the digital solution for them. So
Yeah, and I think this is something that I've also seen in some of the other companies. So one of the companies actually used AI to scan through thousands and thousands of paper documents, and not just scanning them and inputting them into a digital format, but also start looking for some patterns. This was for an oil and gas company that they used. But interesting use of AI to convert from a normal or an analogous or a non-digital format into an electronic data. Okay, let's see some other questions. What type of integration is there with existing administrative softwares?
Yeah, we have APIs with existing software, with Transpass or with BlueJ, or with several ERP systems. So that's and it's also we are working also for. I have a sister company of CargoLedger is working for simpler invoicing, and with that we have also APIs to all the administrative software, Exact, Unit 4, what have you, SAP. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. And I'll just take one more question, and this kind of nicely segues into my next question, and that is, what do you think determines the speed with which your solutions are being implemented in real life? Is it the state of technology or other challenges? And I'm going to combine that with, which was my next question. When it comes to companies deploying some of these new age technologies, what are some of the challenges that they're likely to face? What are the obstacles?
The challenge is the adaptation of also the understanding of the technology, what the technology can and cannot do. But it's also what we find is that and how we approach it basically is that you look at what issue, what problem does the customer has to solve, and how. So basically, stay away from the blockchain, because in our belief, it's there. The blockchain, the technology is there, and you can use it. You don't. That sounds a bit weird. You don't really have to understand what it's doing, just that it solves trust issues for you, and that's how we look at it basically, and that's how that's how we approach customers also. Okay, that you have existing solutions, but if you have a longer supply chain with more parties and with inferred trust, basically, almost, that the customer of your customer or the supplier of your supplier is supplying stuff, and but he also sends you info. How do you trust, and how do you know that stuff is then that info is good, and that you can trust that info? That is a very difficult to answer with non-blockchain technology. So it's and in itself, you always on top of that existing stack of technology, you have to develop applications that work in a very good manner, so easy to use, user-friendly, reliable, intuitive, all that kind of stuff, and then it will work. But it takes time. Also, developing those solutions takes time. But
Right. Yeah. And I think as one of the main areas, especially in some of the larger organizations, has to do with change management, because you have the naysayers and you have the eyesayers.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. True. It's complex sales. You have to talk to a lot of. If you sell it, you have to talk to a lot of people involved, because it's also in supply. It's strategic for a lot of companies, the supply chain. So it's not, and currently it's working, or maybe currently there's maybe a big opportunity to step in now, with the state we're in, with the whole entire society. But then you still have to convince everyone about the business case, and always talk to the right people. So that's
absolutely. And I think since you both a technology person as well as a business person, what are some of the tips, advice that you would give to technology enthusiasts? I mean, in my experience, you have some of these guys who are completely very technology oriented. I don't want to use any negative words, but very technology oriented, technology enthusiasts. They tend to know a lot about the technology. So when it comes to blockchain, they'll talk about hash coding, they'll talk about all sorts of things. But the moment it comes to trying to help and explain it to the business person, that's where a lot of these guys falter. And how would you go about spreading awareness? Would you conduct trainings on blockchain? Would you conduct some sort of workshop? How do you get the organization mobilized and up to speed?
Yeah, we stayed away from training. We did give some, but there are other companies that are much better in that. We started building software on top of blockchain to show people what it can do, and how it can make stuff easier, also involving regulatory authorities, customs, etc., to that help, and even governmental municipalities, etc. So we started building software on top of it, as I said, on top of the blockchain.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have two questions from Jan. They're both similar, or similar related. So let me ask the first question first. Is your system already ready to use supply chain finance instruments like reverse factoring and or dynamic discounting?
We are looking into that. We would also like to take that a step further with Jan, but but it is a logical thing to look into. Yeah.
And then the other thing is to pay in tokens is one issue you addressed. Why not use digital currency or fiat currency by central banks, BOE, DNB, People's Bank of China, Reichsbank? Is the system ready for that, or is CB rules yet not ready for it?
No, I think the CB rules are maybe not yet ready for that. There are countries that have their own digital currency, and it's very promising. But it's still not quite clear how that will turn out and where it is going. In my view, at least. I agree with you. It would be easy. It would be easy to do that if there's if it would be a very interesting and to do that, to use those tokens. Yeah, but
Yeah,
at the moment we're not.
yeah, and I think one of the concerns or one of the issues that I hear about using digital currency by central banks, and again, I have limited understanding of the subject, but is that unlike some of the free float digital currency or cryptocurrencies like Ether or Bitcoin, the digital currencies of central banks are more regulated, which is has its positive as well as its negative side.
Yeah.
It's not free economy, but it's regulated, and that's why and one of the pretexts of blockchain was that especially cryptocurrency was to move away from the banking
Yeah.
shackles or chains, and now digital currencies on the banks are coming in. Any take on that or any reflection on that?
Yeah, I agree with you, and also the countries that are tighter organized, so to say, or bring out their cryptocurrency earlier to keep the control, maybe. Even there are also others that are looking into it. How can you sort stuff differently with other currencies? But it's still open in my belief. And I do like the initial. That's the initial ideas behind the crypto, that it's decentralized and there's no central authority or basically organizing or controlling stuff. So that's I still have some hope that will bring the world make the world a better place. But yeah.
Excellent. And I think that is what my next question is going to be. Since you are an expert in this field, what are some of the future trends, the forecasts that you may want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, interesting one. Yeah, okay. And there's more and more data coming. I think it will be, and now also, you can look at supply chains in particular, saying, okay, how is the value distributed currently, and how can we organize it in a different manner, and have a more even or more fair distribution of that value that is created in the supply chain, and even make it circular or more sustainable, and know more about what is going in, who does what, where, and when, and what is happening with the goods, and can we reuse goods if they've served their purpose. So those are very interesting things, and I think blockchain can provide a solution or part of the solution in that sense. So, and also, as I mentioned, distributing the value maybe in a better manner. That's also more fair.
Yeah, and you've mentioned about trust in quite a few of your answers. How much of this trust, let's say, I wouldn't call it justification, but the trust element, how much of that is part of your solution? Meaning, how extensively are you using the trust to drive your solution?
Trust is how we look at, and the technology helps with organizing trust in a different manner, and it adds more trust because you can rely better on the technology. It's safer, it's more privacy is it's better insured in a distributed solution, all kind of stuff. So that makes trust less of an issue in a sense. That's also so if you know who you do business with, you know what he or she does, so you also get a more history on what is happening, and how someone is performing over time, and then you can use that to work with someone in a certain way.
Sure.
Does that answer your
There's
question?
actually a question also related to this, I know we also have to wrap up in a couple of questions as well, but I'll throw it out anyways, and maybe it can be answered independently of uh, outside of this call or otherwise. Can you explain how it solves trust issues? Can you give an example?
How it solves trust issues.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it helps.
I mean, it's quite fundamental to blockchain, right? I mean, if you understood what blockchain technology, the mutation and the timestamping and the hex coding, they are kind of inherently designed to resolve trust issues, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Where it helps. I mean, we have a customer that sends was used to send his info by paper or via email, and now he sends it through our system. So then there is no yeah, less discussion about the quality of data. So it saves him time in phone calls, in following up on knowing where the goods are, but also if someone accepted the goods, or if they added, if there's an issue with the goods, then it's also shared between the parties
Right.
using our software. So
Yeah.
that solves those issues are solved, yeah. Or less issues, or
It's minimized. Yeah.
take less time.
Yeah, yeah. And for the person who had asked this question, just to let you know, we'll also be organizing several other interviews as well as training sessions. So if you want to get your blockchain understanding more brushed up, I would advise to join those sessions that we're going to have in the future as well. Coming back, Yalmar, just a couple of more questions. I think one of the questions was around sustainability. And we know that we're talking about circular economy. I was in the past, I consulted with a company that did circular IT, where raw materials or resources are being reused, both for environmental as well as financial benefits. Um, Based on blockchain and IoT and AI, what's your view? How do you see these technologies play a role in circularity?
Yeah, as we discussed that, we touched upon that earlier, in the sense that if you have like a digital passport of maybe a building, or that is stored in the blockchain in some manner, you can always fall back on that passport to know which goods were put in where, and if you want to take it out, what was the state of the goods, etc. Yeah, that helps with that. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the questions that was asked was, can you give us an example where CargoLedger has already made a difference?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we are e-CMR with a freight forwarder and a transporter. That helps. That saves the freight forwarder 55 cents on every euro he spends on order handling and administration, and also the transporter saves money using the digital the e-CMR.
Okay, so I guess one more question, and this is the last question I have on my list. Um, this question is, before we leave, actually somebody just popped in a question. I think we can maybe manage
Anonymous.
anonymous. Yeah. What is your biggest learning you've had, or the one that comes to mind developing this?
The biggest learning, obviously that it's not that it's complex sales. That was a big learning. Also that was also that I'm a strong believer of technology, but you still have to convince. So there are other people than myself having a different view on life and on technology. There's also and then about the technology, it's still promising, early days also, but it's very promising what it can do. And I also saw it. Yeah, we did see it work in particular cases. So that's very, very promising. Yeah.
Right. And, anything you would like to add to what you just said as your last pearl of wisdom before we wrap up the session today?
Yeah, interesting. I had Yeah, let me check. I had it. I had written something down. Yeah. Also, yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, a bit more on elaborating, maybe even a bit more on that last question, because it was a good question. Also, we try to step in the shoes of that customer, and which job he or she tries to do, and then for that job they need information, and then okay, and which information can we then it's all about sharing data, and then which information can I provide as a partner in the supply chain that makes his or her work easier, and how do I do that in a safe and proper timely manner? That's if you start with that basically, then then you can have put blockchain underneath, or also AI and IoT, and really solve issues in my belief. Yeah. So that's start with that end user in mind, and then think about what he or she has to do or wants to do and wants to solve. And then try to make their life easier. Then it will work out.
Yeah, it's interesting in how you brought about the customer, um, uh, to wrap up the session. And in fact, it's often the customer journey or the customer needs that needs to become central to many of the solutions,
Yeah.
which is there. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and time. Um, I know some of the viewers and listeners would like to get in touch with you. So what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Now you can email me, or drop me an email, or find me on LinkedIn, or our website at cargoledger.nl. So yeah, feel free.
Okay. So
Looking
in
for
fact,
always open for discussion. And it was very, as I mentioned, very nice of you to have me here, and also thank you for the questions. Also, good experience.
yeah, thank you so much, Yalmar. And for the viewers, we are going to share an email with the contact details of Yalmar. If you want to get in touch, or if you want to share your views, we will definitely reply back and connect you with Yalmar on LinkedIn or through email. Um, Going forward, just a couple of things that I wanted to share. First of all, I'm just going to bring back my shared screen to quickly talk about one piece that we forgot. Spark Living Lab is a research program, as I'd mentioned. Here are the different parties that are involved on the screen. You can see to drive this program further. We are looking at developing, co-developing, co-creating blockchain-based solution using other technologies as well. And this interview series is really a part of promoting, creating awareness amongst different people, sharing best practices across different people. And that's why we will continue to have some more interviews, but also due to the current crisis, we had to move our physical workshop to a digital format. So if some of you guys are interested, you can get in touch with us. So just to before we leave, here are some of the contact details. As I mentioned, Victor van der Hulst, who is the program manager, who is running the program, unfortunately could not make it. But if you want to get in touch with him or with anybody else, including me or Yalmar, please send a message to info@sparklivinglab.nl. I'll repeat, info@sparklivinglab.nl. And we also have our website there. And in case you're interested in hearing more data-driven stories, how technology is helping, then please write us an email, send us an email, or share your details and share your ideas, what you want to hear from us, from this project, whether it's examples or some methodologies or whatever comes to your mind. We would like to bring about as much awareness related to the subject as possible. And with that, I would also say, if you like this interview, then please make sure that you let your network know, let your colleagues know, share the information with them, and yeah, that's it. So I would wish all of you a very good day. Stay safe, stay secure, and hope to see you come and join us for our events in the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you.